Since we talked, a book comes out, Sondheimer Life, and filled in, as it were, things we simply didn't talk about in the previous two programmes. They weren't about that. But I was very interested in how you got started. I always am, and I think most people are. And the way you started off writing music, your relationship when you met Oscar Hammerstein and so on. Could you tell us a bit about that, how you got there?
Well, when I was 6 or 7 years old, I took piano lessons, which is what every nice Jewish boy did in upper middle class Manhattan. But I wasn't particularly interested in it, but there was music that somewhere within me. And then my parents got divorced when I was 10 years old. My mother had custody of me, and she bought a farm in Pennsylvania, a farmhouse really with acreage attached. I was an only child. She needed a way of occupying my time, and she also liked celebrities a lot. And she knew the Hammersteins. They lived a few miles away, and they had a son my age. So Jimmy Hammerstein and I became fast friends, and Oscar became a sort of surrogate father to me. I've often said, if Oscar had been, a geologist, I would have been a geologist. I just wanted to do what he did. I wanted to be him, so to speak, and so that's how I got interested in writing songs.
Don't you love us? My fault I feel. I thought that you were what I was. Sorry, my dear. And where are the clouds? Quick, send in the cloud. Don't bother. There.
One of the things that comes out from the book is that your parents were divorced, it was a real rupture. But you keep saying, well, I wasn't unhappy. I was getting on with my life.
No.
And so you refuse to sort of take part in the, I had such an unhappy childhood, this is the wound that drove me to be...
I wish I could say so. When it became unpleasant was after the divorce. The first 10 years of my life, I remember being quite happy. What happened was that my mother felt so betrayed by my father, and she had nobody else to take it out on because he left her for another woman. And she took it out on me. She would make fun of me in public. She'd have occasionally drunken fits. It was verbal abuse, not physical abuse, but it was a lot of public humiliation. It was, look what the cat dragged in, and that sort of stuff in front of her friends. And so when I was 15, I left. Well, she had told me that if I ever saw Dad's wife, my stepmother, she could have her thrown in jail, which was, of course, a lie, but when you're 11, you believe anything. And when I found out it wasn't true, I thought, oh, no, I don't have to live with this angry woman anymore. I'm going to go live with my dad, which I did.
Back to New York.
Back to New York.
Now, to have as your mentor, Oscar Hammerstein, is quite something. And he took a real interest in you, didn't you? And you took a real interest in what he was doing, and he was quite tough on you.
Yes, he was very tough, which was, what a good teacher is, but encouraging, I wrote a show when I was 15 years old that I was hoping he would produce, because he and Richard Rodgers did produce shows for the Rich Company, didn't just write, they produced also. And it was, of course, a local show. I went to a school called George School, and this show was called By George, rather clever, I thought, for 15 years old. And it was all about school happenings, and I was sure he would produce it. And when he read it, he said, well, I got to tell you, this is the worst thing I ever read in my life, I have to be honest. And as he saw my lower lip, he said, I'll tell you why. He said, let's look at the first stage direction. And he treated me like an adult. It was all in one afternoon. But by the end of that afternoon, I knew more about songwriting than most people learn in a lifetime.
Can you remember some of the points he told you then, Stephen?
Oh, sure. He said, think of the song as a one-act play. Think of it as having something for a character to get from point A to point B. He was concerned with telling a story through song. That was his great pioneering thing in the American musical theater. And so he said, a song should be like a little one-act to get from point A to point B, an idea and then a development and then a conclusion. So the whole thing made sense to me from the point of view of playwriting, and that's a major thing. You know, other songwriters did not do that. Oscar was the one who did that.
And you went to college to study music, did you?
Well, I went to college actually to study mathematics, and then I took an elective course in music my first year, and I just found the teacher inspirational. He was very Mary Poppins kind of teacher. All the other students hated him because he was absolutely spit-spotted, humorless, and it was exactly right for me because he took all the romance out of music. I remember one of the first lectures, he played La Mer for us, and then he'd say, "It sounds like the C to you." He said, "That sounds like the C to some people, but let's really look what it's about. It's about the whole tone scale. It's not about the C." And then he proceeded to analyze it just in musical terms, meaning forget the tone poem aspect. And of course, that appealed to my mathematical mind, my puzzle mind, and also it was a way of organizing an art. And he taught me about organization.
Where do you think this puzzle mind came from?
My guess is when you have a chaotic early life, you want to make order out of chaos. And, you know, one of the great things about crossword puzzles is there's a solution, you know. And that's unfortunately not true of all the puzzles in life.
If I loved you, time and again I would try to say all I want you to know.
When I was 15, Carousel opened, and Oscar, because it was during spring vacation, Oscar took Jimmy and me out of school, and I went to, you know, my first opening, and of course was smitten with the whole process, and cried and laughed, and et cetera, et cetera. But by that time, I was pretty much smitten with show business.
That was what you were going to do.
Yeah, I knew that. But by the time I was 15, I knew what I wanted to do.
So how did you get from there to West Side Story?
Oscar outlined a course for me. He said, tell you what you should do, right? Take a play that's a good play, make it into a musical. Then take a play that you think is flawed, make that into a musical. Then take a non-dramatic form, like a novel or a short story, somebody else's idea, make that into a musical. In other words, dramatize a non-dramatic form, a non-theatrical form. And then finally, make up your own story and write that.
That's
So
4 musicals.
4 musicals.
Wow.
So from the age of 60, that's what I did. And at the age of 21, 22, I had a portfolio of professional songs. And I knocked on producers' doors and came to the attention of 2 people who were producing a version of Serenade, the James Cain novel, which was to have a score by Leonard Bernstein and direction by Jerome Robbins. They had dropped out. So the producers, Arthur Lawrence was to write the book. He was still aboard, but they were looking for a songwriter. So I got to play my songs. The project fell through, but meanwhile Arthur had heard my work, and I ran into him at a party about a year later. And just asked him casually what he was doing. And he said he was about to embark on a musical version of Romeo and Juliet with a score by Leonard Bernstein. And I asked him just casually who was doing the lyrics, and he said, "I never thought of you, but Comden and Green are supposed to do the lyrics, Betty Comden and Adolph Green, but they are perhaps stuck in a Hollywood contract. If they can't get out of it, maybe you'd be it." And I didn't want to just write lyrics, but I wanted to be Leonard Bernstein. So I said, "Sure, I'll go up and play for him." And I went and played for Lenny, and a week later they offered me the job. And my instinct was to turn it down because I wanted to write music. But Oscar said, "Take the job." He said, "It sounds like a wonderful project, and also the opportunity to work with people of the caliber of Jerome Robbins and Leonard Bernstein is an invaluable experience, much better than just being taught by me, because you'll be working with professionals." And he was right.
When I will go back to San Juan, when will you shut up and get going? Everyone there will give big cheer. Everyone there will have moved here.
There are many people, and a large part of the public, that still thinks that a musical is something you go and relax at the end of a long day at the office. People used to leave West Side Story in droves all the time, because it was not what they wanted a musical to be. and they paid their hard-earned money to relax at the end of the day, and they got a lot of juvenile delinquent ballet dancers, and that was really not their idea of a good time.
Boy, crazy boy, stay this boy. Freeze it, fuzz it, easy does it.
That's gone.